So I'm going to start, Jerry, you're in an interesting position because you reflect both the marketing side as a buyer, but also the sell side of a company that has inventory. So how would you start with addressable advertising? Does it start with your marketing efforts?
So I think it would. That's exactly where we would start. We would start, trying to use the technology to talk to our existing customers, just like we use direct marketing today. It's the digital version of that, and I think once we could prove that works in that environment, we could then sell it to other people.
And Matt, does that mean that the rules of buying have to change to support applications like that?
Yeah, I mean, the rules of buying have to change anyway, which is we are all in our own little siloed worlds, and we do things the way that we've always done things. And, a question that we all really probably ought to address is, from the consumer perspective, what is the value of this offer, not how each of us is going to make our own money. But yeah, I need to start a hell of a lot earlier in the chain to determine who we're going after and where they're going to be most receptive to a message from us before, is that my television group that's going to buy or the DR people that's going to buy.
And so I'm curious, Bob, coming from the research side, do you see that work starting to get done? Is that what you're doing at Comcast, getting ready for this, for what Matt is seeing as a sort of shift to a CRM focused world?
Well, I think a couple things. One, I don't go to any meetings now with an attorney because of the data is so important, that's a whole other issue about privacy and what we're going to do with that. So we'll probably table that for now. But I do think that people are starting to recognize that we need to start taking baby steps. We need to make some headway. I think the internal marketing department is the easiest first win. It gives us, credibility within the cable organization, and then it also builds case studies as we get out. But I think from an addressability perspective, we need to figure out how far down, what kind of informational pyramid we need to build, and how far down the one-to-many towards one-to-one we can really get.
And today, what's starter? What's the baby step of information that you think is going to be relevant?
Households with dogs, I thought it was. That's the one they always call it. I never understood that. I think for us, it's, I would love to, as a cable subscriber to Comcast, not get an advertisement to get a free Wii. That drives my kids crazy. So I think, we should use the information that we have about our own subscriber base and start to deliver messages with, the right program that they can, the right offer for them. If they're a double play customer, give them a triple play ad. Those simple baby steps will go a long way.
And so, Lisa, I know you from the ANA, and you've been on the forefront of a lot of these topics on addressability. Is there a baby step for how a Wachovia or a Wells Fargo starts in this?
Well, this summer we had done an agency search, and we had, in the process, redesigned ourselves to be the best fit with an agency going forward. So we learned a lot. We looked at a lot of our processes, and what we really kept coming back to is it starts with the consumer insight. So for me, it starts with understanding the consumer, getting research departments up to speed, and being able to unlock the knowledge that they have, and then being able to, because that's a common base to talk to management, to talk to your peers in the industry, to talk to people on your team. And once you understand what the consumer wants, it's an easier jump to go to the technology that's going to deliver on it. So if you're looking at it from a consumer standpoint versus we have a product and we have to sell it and trying to push it that way, I think it starts with the consumer insights and getting the research behind it.
But consumers want less ads. That's what they want. So what do we do with that situation?
They want what?
Less ads.
Actually, I would say that consumers want less irrelevant ads. I think consumers want more relevant ads.
And what they're bombarded with is the consumers at the center point, and they're getting all kinds of messages, maybe related, maybe not, from one advertiser, and all different kinds of mediums. And they don't know what to look at. They throw away a lot, or they zone out. And what you really need to start with is this consumer, and then figure out what your message is from an integrated, holistic standpoint, and how to deliver it the way they're taking in media.
You know, I would add to that, we have a saying at Viacom, or specifically certainly at MTV Networks, that we don't work for MTV Networks, that we work for our audience. And so everything we do from the consumer research starts with what we think our consumers want. And I don't agree that they necessarily want less ads, they want very relevant. We did a deprivation study on MTV where we literally took the ads away from a set of our consumers, our audience, and they felt that they were completely disconnected from pop culture. They did not know which movies were coming out. They did not know which video games they should be paying attention to, or the latest sneakers from Skechers. And it was a really interesting experiment to say, okay, in this environment where you're completely cluttered, if you take all that away, do you feel disconnected? And they did. And that's a large reason is a lot of the ads on MTV or Nickelodeon are very targeted. They're not addressable to the household level, but they're at least targeted. I think people get frustrated when they see, you know, a random ad that has no relevance for that audience, because they're like, look, with all the technology that the internet has brought to us, can't you get your act together on the TV side?
And so do you think there's going to be new types of research which you'll use away from the sort of traditional audience research that MTV has used in order to support these types of models?
You know, we rely very little on the traditional research stuff because, frankly, I think it's mostly underwhelming. What we rely on is a lot of customized study. We do about 500 a year. Things like the deprivation. We move into people's homes and watch them how they consume media and multitask. And that on-the-ground, very intense research really leads us to our insights on how to program. You know, one of the biggest findings we had recently was that multi-generations are living together. Not to do with the economy, but people are not only living with their parents, they're living with their grandparents. And that affects how you think about nighttime programming on something like Nick at Night. And so those detailed, in-depth surveys of our consumers are much more relevant than the traditional, with all due respect to the traditional research that's out there.
So, Seth, I was just going to say, your original question was what kind of baby steps do we need to take, or what do we need to get this going? And, you know, I would say I think it's competition, and not competition between companies or media vendors. It's the competitive nature of the people that are up here. I mean, once somebody starts to really have success with this vehicle, everybody's going to pile on. The agencies are going to want a piece of it. The MSOs are going to want a piece of it. And the suppliers are going to want a piece of it. And it seems like it's kind of just right there. I mean, your big announcement with Cablevision, that got a lot of people's attention.
This is Seth Haberman, the moderator here in Not Visible World.
I'm
We
sorry.
have to be careful to, you've already embarrassed me enough about montage.
Yeah, it does seem like it's right here, but it also seems like it's been right here for a really, really, really long time. And we were talking backstage that thank God for this economy, because we can't afford to have all the redundancies among us forever. So yeah, whichever of us has the best idea that will get us all going, oh shit, wish I'd had it, better race after, is going to mean we're going to start doing things differently. You can't possibly have all of the redundant models over and over and over again, because you do lose the consumer in that, because we're not actually paid to do anything more than chef up and execute media plans. That's dumb.
Yael, as you look at this, having seen the early gestation of these businesses, are all the factors in place to say, time to go?
I think they very easily could be, but in a way, what's required, I don't want to diminish it, because it's actually substantial. In my mind, there are three things that I think we need. We need, A, the right products to roll out. B, we need the right verticals, ad verticals involved in the conversation. And 3, we need the right inventory partners at the table to bring the scale needed to make this meaningful in the first place. So on the product side, I don't think this needs to be an all-singing, all-dancing solution today. Let's start with something that doesn't upend the business model today. You know, let's start there. We don't have to end there, but let's start there. So one advertiser per spot, targeting messaging by zone. You know, we've got 30 million households that are supported by interactivity. Let's leverage that. You know, and in terms of the efficiency effectiveness debate, that will persist. But we have a potential to be really hung up by it, and let's not be. Let's figure out who really has a stake in the efficiency game and who can create value there. And maybe it's our agencies who can, and let's let them compete there. So it's yours, my friend. You know, and then I think on the vertical side, there's strong arguments to be made for, certain verticals that have real predilection for this. So that's not to say that others don't, but those who have real knowledge, real intel on the customer lifetime value, so they know the willingness to pay. And by the way, high lifetime value is not a bad thing either. So telecom.
I think high lifetime value and information intensive is the right.
Right, exactly. So we can learn from Cablevision's recent uplift in simply just targeting by customer segment, right? So if you know what your customer base already owns and you can actually figure out the upsell there, it's really just transitioning a direct marketing or inside sales model to television. That's kind of near in. And then finally, I'm not going to say anything new about the inventory piece. We need to bring inventory to bear. But what I will say is I don't think you can exaggerate the degree to which the lack of openness today between the MSOs and the content providers is fairly astounding. It took a lot to get the cable guys to talk and to really be, for Canute to exist. But right now, I would say Carolyn's probably on the vanguard in terms of open-mindedness. Most cable provider, content providers view Canute with huge distrust, right? And I think they see this as another retrans conversation, another way to renegotiate affiliate fees. So basically to carve up a fixed pie as opposed to partnering to grow the pie. Or partnering for a shared product roadmap, that's just not part of the dialogue. And so that to me is the hardest thing. It is the most critical piece, and it's the piece in greatest need of attention.